welcome to episode 8 of the Animus Island podcast. This is a podcast focusing on Assassin's Creed and its community, news, and anything related to it. I am one of your hosts, Aftermath1231, and with me today, as usual, is Aries.
Hello, friends.
And also McCracKenway.
Hey, buds.
And for this special episode, we have the full Animus Island team here. So we also have Lawson.
Hello.
He, in case you hadn't picked up on it, I don't think we mentioned it too many times, he makes music for the podcast, which you can find in the description of every episode.
Our glorious theme song is the work of him.
Yes. You may want to check out, if you're listening on iTunes, myself and McCracKenway did a special bonus episode on Tuesday where we play Tetris, swear a lot, be unprofessional, and talk about the AC Syndicate announcement.
That is only on YouTube.
And that's only on YouTube, mainly because it focuses directly on the game a lot. Lawson, I believe you have something you want to announce as well.
Yes, for those of you who are familiar with what I do on the subreddit is I run a marathon every year, and this year's marathon is the 84 Days, 84 Sequences Marathon, and I'm announcing for the first time that it will be starting officially on July 30th. That is when we will begin.
Wow.
That's a lot of sequences.
That's a lot of sequences.
It is 84 of them.
Now, seeing as this is episode 10, we're doing something special, which we might continue and do every once in a while.
10 episodes.
There may be every 10 episodes if we decide to do that. We're taking a Q&A. Earlier, just 3 hours ago, if you follow me on Twitter, you would have seen this. Twitter.com/Aftermath1231. Easily the easiest way to keep up with what I'm doing, which is usually not a lot. I also posted this on the subreddit. So we have some questions, both from us to answer and from the community as well, which we will get right into. Our first question, something that we usually ask all of our guests, and that would be, how did you get into AC in the first place? Now, we're going to go about a particular order for these questions. It's going to go myself, and then it's going to go Aries, McCracKenway, and then we're going to finish up with Lawson, then move on to the next question. I got into AC when, I believe it was 2009, I was on this. When I was younger, I used to really enjoy renting games, playing them for a week and then returning them, as you do. I saw AC2 on the shelf. I thought it looked epic. And this was around the time that I discovered YouTube as well, so I looked up. First thing I did when I got home was looked up the trailer for it, and then I looked at the trailer for AC1. And then I looked up for the trailer for AC1, and then I went and I rented AC1 next time we went to the store. I had an absolute blast with that. I sped through it. I don't think I actually ended up finishing it, because at the time I was in an age where finishing the game wasn't important at all. Then, once I finished that, we returned it, and we got AC2, which was a ton of fun, and I really enjoyed that. It was one of my most memorable I'm sorry, I'm being distracted here. One of the most memorable experiences in video games for me. And so after playing AC2, then I heard about AC Brotherhood, and that was the very first game that I followed the launch to. I watched every single trailer 20 times and was constantly following it. And I think that was the very first game that I actually pre-ordered as well. And that, for the most part, is how I got into AC. Aries, would you like to explain how you got into AC?
All right. So my story starts when I was in 6th grade, and this was the lead up to AC1. And my buddy Matthew was like, hey, Gregory, there's this really cool new game. It's called Assassin's Creed. It's like the word greed, but with a C, because we didn't know what words were back then. And he said, the really cool thing is that there are these cities, and they're cool, and they're open, and there are mountains. And if you see a mountain, you can go to that mountain. I was like, holy crap, that's so cool. And then I had to face the very uphill battle of getting my mom to let me buy this game, because it was mature and I was like 4 years old at the time. So it took me a lot of convincing, and eventually, a year after AC1 came out, so this was like 2 years of convincing, the last straw was I said, there's an option where you can turn off the blood, and that was what did it. So I finally got to play this really cool game, and AC1 was like, oh my god, these cities, you can run around and stab historical people. And then AC2 came out the next year, and I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. And then since then, I just followed every cycle religiously. And I wasn't quite with AC from the start, but I played all the games in order. And technically, I haven't gone a single year without playing an AC game, because it's just been AC1 and then onward. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
When you're ready.
Well, the first time that I ever really saw Assassin's Creed at all was in a magazine. They were talking about how much improved AC2 was at the time, but I only had a Wii at the time, so I didn't get Assassin's Creed 2 when it came out. I didn't even play an Assassin's Creed game until several years later. Not several years later, probably the next year, when I was at my cousin's house in England. And my cousin is the person who got me into games in the first place. So he had some games. He was like, which ones do you want to try out? And I was like, I've heard of Assassin's Creed. Let me try that one. So I tried. He recommended Assassin's Creed 2 because he said Assassin's Creed 1 was, slow and tedious. So I tried Assassin's Creed 2, and I was most blown away by the climbing. I thought that was the most realistic, incredible thing ever. So I was totally sold on the game, but I still didn't have what at the time for me was like a next-gen system because it ran bigger games than the Wii. So I took that summer, saved up, did lots of yard work, bought a PlayStation 3, and a used copy of Assassin's Creed 2 was my first game on the PlayStation 3. And I blew past to where I got to with my cousin in a day and just kept playing. It was awesome. And that was also the year Brotherhood came out, so I didn't have to wait very long until I got a game that, to me, I was like, at the time, I was like, wow, this is even better than AC2. Now my opinion might be changed, but yeah, that's how I got into AC.
Lawson?
Well, for the sake of time, I'm going to refrain from answering because my answer to both this question and the next was covered in my episode. That was episode 4. So if you're particularly interested, which you're probably not, just go back and check that one.
Aries, would you like to handle the next question?
All right, so the next question is, how did you get into the AC community? Aftermath?
Well, just after AC3 came out, I was a massive AC fan. I would speak with anyone whenever I got the chance about AC that knew about it. And my probably would have been January, I believe, when my cousin, who also got AC3 because he was big into the AC multiplayer, he was telling me about how the AC subreddit's freaking out with this thing. It was probably something about how Connor sucks or something. And I had actually heard about Reddit before this. I tried it out once. I thought it looked very confusing. And when I heard about there was an AC forum there, I actually went off and I actually tried again. And I actually got into it a bit more. Maybe I looked for maybe a week or two. And then I got into it and made an account and started upvoting, commenting, things like that. Very rarely. And then it would be about, I think it's 9 months later, when just after AC4 came out is when I got really into the community and I became kind of well-known. Some people actually knew my name, as when I started actually commenting and basically commenting on nearly every single thread just after AC4 came out. Aries?
So I first got into the community, I think it was actually the day that all of the AC4 stuff got announced and shown off, because it's well known at my high school that I was an absolute AC nerd. And the day that all that stuff came out, we had about an hour before class started where we were all at school, and I was freaking out about this trailer and all this stuff, and I was going online, and I found a screenshot of AC4, the one where Edward is shooting the guy, and he has this, his other pistol. And it was the first picture that I ever upvoted because I needed an account just so I could save that picture and find it. And then I found the Assassin's Creed subreddit, And then I got pretty much on board with that and was there, commenting, following articles and just getting along with the hype train for AC4. And I got super into the community and was much more active then than I am now. But it was pretty much the start of AC4 is when I hopped on. Connor? McCracKenway? Sorry.
Connor, I think you might be muted.
Yeah, we don't hear you, buddy.
Sorry. Okay, I got on Reddit because the people on the Rooster Teeth podcast kept mentioning Reddit. So I actually got on there mostly just to see what they were talking about. Assassin's Creed was one of the first subs I subscribed to. But I think this was probably around the time of AC4 hype. So AC4 was announced, but it hadn't come out yet. So I was on there for a little bit, but for some reason, I think I was also over in the Mass Effect subreddit, and they made me feel bad, so I left Reddit for a while. And when I came back, I became more active in the Assassin's Creed subreddit, and then I got a lot more active around the time Unity was announced, at E3, actually. And somewhere around there, I met Aries here, and he got me even more invested in the community. So that's that story.
Fun fact, we both go to the same college, and we met each other at orientation. And about 20 seconds after meeting each other, we discovered that we both like Assassin's Creed. And I'm like, do you go on Reddit? He's like, yeah. Do you go on Reddit? I'm like, yeah. And we found out that we've run into each other a couple times, and then friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lawson, he has something to say.
Yeah, this was kind of funny. I had been in Reddit since like 7th grade because I liked looking at Rage comics. Don't judge me. I was a 7th grader.
Yes.
And that was the thing to do when I was 11. But I remember in like 8th grade, this was how I found out that the subreddit existed. In 8th grade, I was sitting next to this kid, and he was asking me what Reddit was because he saw me browsing. And I was like, oh, it's kind of like this like collection of communities. There's a subreddit for anything, man. Anything you can think of. And of course, his first response is to just put after the /r/ just curse words just to see what would happen. And he put in ass. And one of the suggestions that came up in a little drop-down menu was Assassin's Creed. And that's how I discovered that the subreddit existed.
What a wonderful story.
Now, the next question comes from us from Twitter and from Escoblades, the well-known Ubisoft community manager in charge of AC. He asks, I'm interested in all participants' favorite AC games today and reasons why. Aries, could you lead this one for us? I need time to think.
All right. This is tricky. My first answer will be don't make me pick. It's a tie between AC4 and Rogue. For all of the reasons to love both. If I really had to pick to play one for the rest of my life, oh gosh, that's tough. I would probably say AC Rogue, because the gameplay is just the most refined that it's been in a long time. The world design is fantastic. New York is great. The River Valley is glorious in every way. And just the story is all sorts of incredible. And my favorite bit of AC is the philosophical banter between the Templars and Assassins, and you get a lot of that in Rogue, and that's why I think it's probably my favorite. Aftermath, are you ready?
Yes.
Or should I go McCracKenway?
My relationship with AC and which one is my favorite is very complicated, and the answer is usually whichever one I played last, because whenever I do once every 3 months I do a full playthrough, and then after AC2 I'm like, oh my god, that was definitely my favorite AC. I remember exactly why I love it now. And the ACB is like, it improves upon AC2 so much. I love it. It's way better than AC2 and Revelations, and it continues like that all the way up to AC4. And then I'm just like, wait a second. I appear to love every single one of these. Maybe Unity. I love Unity, and I've played through it 4 times now to see if I did love it or not. But I'm not sure it'd be up there with the other ones to be my favorite. Connor?
Oh man. Normally, I don't have an answer to this question. If I have to pick, it's probably Assassin's Creed Revelations. I just really liked. To me, that felt like the most refined of Ezio's trilogy. And it actually, the thing I liked most about it was that, unlike Brotherhood, it didn't have any annoying open spaces. It was all buildings. And it was exotic. It was a place I had never been, because I'd actually been to all the places, well, not all the places, but most of the places in AC2 and Brotherhood. So it was a lot fresher to me, I guess, and I really liked the way the story went and how it wrapped up with Ezio, and some of the set piece moments in that were also very fun, I thought.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I had heard of Assassin's Creed. Like, I was following it. Like, I knew what it was since probably AC2 came around. And none of them were, like, super interesting to me until 4 came out. And that's when I was like, I really want to play this pirate simulator, but I'll have to play all the back games because I'm not the kind of person who will just start in the middle of an established franchise and not know what the details are of the last 6 games or whatever. So I just went back and played them all up, and then, yeah, that was it.
Next question comes from the subreddit, from Evil Eeyore, who I know quite well. He asks, how exactly does Shay make his own luck? Does anyone have an answer to that?
If I may, the answer is that Shay's diet it exclusively consists of Lucky Charms. That's basically the short of it.
Is this Lucky Charms a cereal or actual Lucky Charms?
Both. He mixes them in.
Okay, so Lucky Charms, the cereal with like rabbit's feet and 4-leaf clover garnishes.
It's tough to eat, but it really it's concentrated luck, and that's how he does it.
Okay.
My theory is that, as we all know, 4-leaf clovers are the source of all luck in the world, and plants have the unique ability to create their own food via photosynthesis. So I think there's some sort of transitive property at work there that Shay is able to make his own luck via that same procedure.
I'm going to take it
So
one
Shay's
step
a plant.
further. Yeah, that was where I was going to go.
Shay is a plant, yes.
Shay is, in fact, a 4-leaf clover in disguise.
Well,
as soon as
there
his
you have it.
parents decided that his name would be Shay Patrick Cormac, it was like, okay, he's going to be the most Irish dude that ever lived. We might as well just make him a luck generator.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think it has to do with his unbelievably strong Irish accent and how he somehow, by some kind of miracle, he was born and raised in British America, yet retained this Irish accent because somehow accents are genetic,
It took 20 years
And
to
so-
get his French accent. It's really weird how it worked at Ubisoft.
Yeah. And I think that has something to do with whenever he says something Irish or speaks in that particular Irish accent or goes extremely stereotypically Irish, then it just like inside his body, this burst of luck, it just blows and then it just comes out of him in all directions. And that's how he makes his own luck. The next question comes from Neo Nugget on Twitter, and he asks, which was the most painful AC game to 100%/platinum? McCracKenway, would you like to lead us off with this one?
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, every AC game is platinum potential, so I go for all of them. Unity sucked. Rogue also sucked because they had too many crappy collectibles. But the one that probably takes the pain to platinum cake is actually AC Brotherhood because of those stupid-ass multiplayer achievements that are now impossible to get. And so I have not actually platinumed that game because of those stupid...
You were going to say something about tanks.
No, the tank just takes work, but it is annoying. It's very annoying,
yeah.
but it's definitely the multiplayer achievements because I cannot get them anymore because nobody plays.
Well, for me, I've only actually platinum/100%ed 2 of the AC games, which was Black Flag and Unity, and neither were particularly painful because I had a lot of fun doing it. So, but which took longer? That would be Unity with its meaningless random collectibles that make no sense.
Absurd amount of chests.
I wonder who places all those chests around Paris. Aries, would you like to tell us something?
I platinumed and 100%ed 2, 100% of Brotherhood Revelations 3 and 4. Got Rogue. I didn't do 1 because I couldn't be bothered with the flags, and Unity I didn't even try to because there's just so much random stuff.
You technically can't platinum because it's not on PlayStation with trophies.
Fair. I would say Unity because at least earlier there was so much stuff that was locked behind walls that you had to get through. I was like, not a chance. Screw this. So I would have to say Unity. Although now they've gotten rid of most of those issues, I'm still not platinuming it.
Yeah. Awesome.
I have literally never completed a game 100% achievements and all in my entire life. I'll beat a main story of a game, but I'm not going to usually go back and get all the collectibles unless I am supremely bored. So I don't even go for full sync in Assassin's Creed games. I've never done a playthrough where I was like, yeah, I'm going to get full synchronized. I just don't care. I just play the game.
So for you, every game would be a pain in the ass.
Basically, yeah.
So you just don't want to.
It gets to a point for me where it's not fun anymore. And when the game starts to feel more like work than play, that's when I drop out.
The next question comes from the AC Universe account on Twitter. And he asks, if you could change something in the storyline of an AC game, or in the storyline of the whole franchise, what would it be? I'll start us off with this one. I think definitely in modern day is where I'd change, because as far as I'm concerned, most of the inner Animus sections are pretty much perfect. Where I'd go with modern day, and Unity in particular, would be that we get Darby to write the modern day, and we give him as much money as he needs to do that. And then we leave him alone in a room, and we give him a mailbox to send some coders, and then we just leave him alone for 6 months and see what happens. Because I reckon that would be the best possible solution to the current problem. Aries?
I made a post about this 8 long months ago called How the Modern Day AC Storyline Should Have Gone. The first Civ not appearing fixes everything. And essentially, you can read the post if you're so inclined, but the plot twist is that if Ezio doesn't meet Juno in the vault, everything becomes way better afterwards because I won't go into details, but it just, trust me, if the first Civ never show up and they're mysterious as they were in AC1, the modern day is way more interesting.
So like,
I'll just leave it
they
at that.
still exist, but they're not.
They still exist, but you don't meet them.
Okay.
Because when you meet them, the mystery, the magic is gone, and that's what sucks.
I mean, that would be interesting. I would kind of almost go, like, I would do that, except I'd still have Juno appear in AC3 because I think that would actually be really interesting, going from, like, nothing to suddenly there's this big bad guy. And we'd still be mysterious because we haven't progressed at all in the modern day for that. Okay, for the sake of not continuing to talk about the modern day, I'm going to say the thing I would change is I would take Assassin's Creed Unity and make the main storyline interact a lot more with the French Revolution because I am a history buff and the French Revolution is fascinating. I'm listening to a podcast that is still not done about the French Revolution, and it's awesome, and they totally did not do it justice. Given I like Unity personally, but they did not do that well.
I would say that if I could change anything in the story, obviously besides modern day, which has been shite for a few years now, I would probably change that. I would put in a lot more interaction between characters of different games because we have a lot of games that have taken place in really close in time period for the last few years. And at one point, I wrote like a rough outline of what Unity could have looked like if it had actually been about Arno teaming up with Connor to take down Shay. And that version to me seems way cooler than what we actually got. So obviously I know that wouldn't have been possible because of the whole difficulties involving interacting with other studios and Unity being in development before years before Rogue was even an idea. But if that could have been possible, that would have been amazing.
I'd like to add on to this real quick. I actually have another thing that I'm actually writing a post about at the moment.
It was one thing.
It doesn't actually say one thing. It just says something. In Assassin's Creed Unity, I think that the entire Animus story would have been massively improved if they had taken the stuff from the Unity novel and the stuff from the Abstergo Employee Handbook and shove them back into the game from whence they came. And then that would be a full story instead of this chopped up piece of crap that we got.
Plus, you get to play as Elise.
Exactly. And the only way to appreciate the story is to have all three. The Abstergo Employee Handbook and the Unity novel make everything in the story of Unity make so much more sense, and it makes it so much more enjoyable that they really should have maybe pick and choose what you rip out of the game, guys. But better. Moving on. Shadow Marcus of Access the Animus on Twitter asked us, what kind of present-day setting would you like to see in Syndicate? And how are you actually expecting it to be? I, personally, would like to see, given what we currently know from the Initiate's website, a setting set within the Norway bunker, where William and, as far as we know, the current assassins are working out of. I think that would be really cool. You could walk around, you could talk to all the assassins, all the initiates, not all the initiates, but the leaders of the initiates, and you could interact with them, and you could go out on the Altair the Second, which would be epic, and I would love that a whole bunch. I'm actually expecting it to be, as they said, following in the footsteps of Unity, where we'll probably speak to Bishop a bit about nothing much. Well, she'll speak at us, and maybe we'll learn about more. Maybe the cinematics will be a bit better or something like that. Maybe the rest will be a bit better, but I don't actually expect it to be much different from Unity's. Aries?
I really don't expect anything, and honestly, I don't care. I've been enjoying the modern day as done in 4 and Rogue, but with Unity, I've stopped caring entirely. They haven't given me any reason to give a single bother about what's going on in the modern day. No. McCracKenway?
So what do you want it to be?
Yeah.
How could they fix it?
I would like it to be just something vaguely similar to whatever happened in 4 and Rogue. Doesn't even have to be Abstergo, but just like hacking computers, getting little behind the scenesy stuff, instead of running around as Desmond, whom I disliked very much, and Unity, where nothing happened.
So, and you're expecting it? What are you expecting it to be like?
Like Unity, where nothing happened.
Okay, Connor.
Well, let me see. What was the first part of the question? What kind of present day? So, what I would like to see is probably close to Afty's idea. I personally like the third-person protagonist where you're interacting with various characters and you can interact with the environment, so you get a bit more freedom of movement, because that's kind of what Assassin's Creed is the freedom of movement part. And then you know, probably a mix of 4, Rogue, and Brotherhood. So it's like you do the hacking stuff, but you get to it in more interesting ways, you know. Because Monteriggioni was kind of cool to explore as Desmond again, but there was very little in it to actually do. So a mix, I think, would suit it very well. What I actually think is going to happen is probably very similar to Unity. That's what it seems to point to, though in future games, I think it's going to get a bit more involved, especially with their comments about how much first Civ storyline they've written. So yeah, Lawson?
Well, first of all, what I would like to see is a small part of what will end up being Victorian London modernized, like they did with Monteriggioni and I think Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, where it was essentially architecturally the same as the one that you explore as Ezio in the Animus, only it's different now. Obviously, this would be much different because London looks completely different now, whereas Monteriggioni looked like the same but with some electricity boxes everywhere. I would like to see a small explorable section of London, maybe based on one of the districts, and then characters that we've maybe never seen or heard of before. I think, I don't know what the situation is with the Initiates lore, so all that stuff you said about the Norway bunker and William Miles and the Altair too, I have no idea what any of that stuff is, but maybe it could be awesome. What I think will probably end up happening is we're going to have a lot of chats over the Helix with, as I like to call her, Worse Rebecca.
Maybe we could at least get rid of Bishop and just have Sean step into the front role in that.
Honestly, that would be better because then there'd be some room for some his patented British snark, and that could at least be somewhat enjoyable. What I think is equally as likely is that they'll have seen the reaction to Unity's modern day and then try to take what was going to be similar and try to shoehorn in a third-person viewable character, and it'll end up being a very limited experience, similar to what we had in AC1, where it's just you in a white room. And I think we might see something like that will hint towards better things in the future, and it'll still be ultimately disappointing because every game has hinted towards better things in the future. We want to see those better things now.
Lawson, very quickly, to your point about London in the modern day, I would say time anomalies are almost certainly going to come back. So we may not see it outside of the Animus, but I think we're going to see it in some capacity.
I hope so.
That your idea right there about London in the modern day, being able to explore both the modern day version and the Animus version is actually a very popular theory at the moment, or at least hope that people have had, that we're going to have an AC game where we have that. I know Putrid has pioneered that theory quite a bit and wanted for it. And I believe Darby, in one of the live streams, either it was Darby or Richard Faris, I think.
Darby said that he liked Brotherhoods the best, I think.
Yes, I think it was Darby who mentioned that he would like to see something like that. The next question comes from Twitter. And Orca167 asks, what was the funniest moment in any AC game? Aries, would you like to start us off?
Very short, Ezio's minstrel songs. I was laughing my ass off when I played that part of Revelations.
Yeah, that probably takes the cake.
I think some of the interactions with Ezio and his mother, or Ezio and Leonardo, would also do
I think the funniest parts of AC for me are when, one example would be the minstrel songs, are when the series takes a look back at itself and kind of laughs at itself. So that's one. The only other one I can think of right now that's not actually that great is when Connor crashes the flying machine into the water. If you play the Homestead missions.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you mentioned about the series looking back at itself, and that would be, you're of course referencing the market analysis videos from AC4.
Yes,
those are great.
And I love that
those
they
are both funny and infuriating.
I love that they got Roger Craysmith to come in and do his American accent
and mispronounce Ezio's
name. Mispronounce every single name. It was amazing.
Rad and Hagadone.
Yeah. You have something to say.
The first thing that comes to mind for me when I'm thinking of funny moments in the AC series is the dialogue between Lucy and Desmond at the beginning of AC2, where he's just like, what are all these animuses, animi? And she's just like, Desmond, shut up. The fuck up.
With periods.
Yeah. I laughed so hard at that. And they had tons of interesting dialogue in that whole sequence that I was like, I wish that whoever wrote the dialogue for that could have written some of the dialogue for other games, because it was pretty funny and entertaining.
Also, honorable mention has to go to, hey, what's the matter you, Altair? That's racist. You're racist.
Now, the next question ties into what we're going to talk about later, which is Syndicate, where Yurkis from the subreddit asks, how hopeful are you for Unity's mistakes to be rectified with the release of Syndicate? Now, I'll start us off. I am extremely hopeful, and I think it's actually kind of bad how confident I am that it's going to be fixed, with Ubisoft Quebec explicitly stating that Unity was a mess, and that whole video on the original presentation about them being disappointed with the reviews and things like that. And I am just, while I'm not excited for Syndicate yet, I don't know why I'm not, but I'm not. I do believe that we're not going to have launch issues with Syndicate.
It's because we haven't hit major hype season yet. We're still in pre-hype season.
The hype train's in the station. It's loading up. People are getting on board.
Yeah.
I would say that I am decently hopeful because Aftermath, like what you said, they know that they have to get this right. Otherwise, they are screwed for years because of this. So we'll get to this later, but I think that's actually part of why certain decisions with regards to the gameplay were made to make sure that the game they have works.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty hopeful as well. There are things that I think will probably be rectified. Like, we already know the cover system has changed. Whether that's better, we'll see, I guess. Also, with combat. Because I actually thought that looked pretty cool in the demo. It looked a lot more fun than Unity's combat, and actually made me realize more so how bad Unity's combat was after being kind of okay with it. But it's terrible.
Yeah, you just reminded me of one aspect that I actually forgot to mention, was that not only Unity had launch issues, but it also had fundamental issues, which we talked about this in the bonus episode, which I feel pretty alone, at least in the hardcore fan base, in thinking I actually didn't like Unity's combat all that much. It felt slow and unresponsive, and I like that they're explicitly stating that they want to make the combat more responsive for Syndicate. And as I said in the Tetris episode, that oftentimes content creators can tell what's wrong with what they're doing than anybody else. And it appears that's exactly true with Ubisoft. They can see where they would feel better if something was a bit better, or they missed textures in this part, or extremely disappointed when they fall through the planet when climbing Notre Dame. And that's another reason why I'm extremely hopeful.
Yeah, things I'm not so hopeful for. I'm not very hopeful for the modern day, like we've talked about just now. And I guess I'm hopeful, but I don't know about it, because every time you write a story, it's kind of a crapshoot as to how well it's going to be received. You can put a lot of effort into it, but if like some vocal people don't like it, then it might just be, lauded as like one of the worst stories of all time. So yeah, overall I'm hopeful. There are specific things that I don't think are going to be that well rectified.
Lawson.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it to be the greatest Assassin's Creed game ever, but I do expect that it fixes the fundamental problems Unity has. One thing that I noticed in the announcement video, the reveal stream, was just how passionate the creative director seems to be about the project. Alex Amancio always seems so bored in his videos, like he's just standing there going, "It's going to be a good game. It's going to be very seamless." But like this guy, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Mark Alexei Cote.
Yeah.
Cote.
He seemed so excited about it. Like you could just see it when he was talking about how he
It's very genuine.
Yes.
Yeah, like you can feel that
You
passion.
can see it in his eyes.
You can see it. You can hear it in his voice. You can feel it in his eyes.
I definitely agree with you on that aspect, Lawson. The team, Ubisoft Quebec, seem very, very passionate. They had this big celebration while they're announcing it, because it's their first big game, and this means that the future is bright for Ubisoft Quebec. Mark Alexei Cote seems very, very passionate, and he hasn't resorted to any shitty buzzwords. It's nothing about Syndicate is seamless, or he hasn't.
We'll see how much he uses the word fast-paced.
Like,
at least that I think that the creative director doesn't need to tell you what the game is. The demos, trailers, and the game itself will tell you what it is. The game, Unity, should have told us that it is seamless. Alex Amancio shouldn't have had to scream at us that it's seamless.
The thing that my mind first picked up on was that there is a huge difference between what you think when you hear someone say, A, this is the greatest Assassin's Creed game ever made, and B, we want you to feel like this is the greatest Assassin's Creed game ever made. There is a huge difference.
That is a huge difference. Very
into
good point.
what your response would be. When you hear someone say this is the greatest Assassin's Creed game ever made, you get the same response that you get when they say it's the deadliest assassin yet. They're obligated to say that. They know that if they don't say that, or at least imply that, you may not buy it. But when he says, we want you to feel like this is the best Assassin's Creed game, it's like, yeah, I see that. And like Aftermath said, it's a studio that has never done an Assassin's Creed game before. It's done DLC. But I think that because they're not Ubisoft Montreal, because they're not the ones that are going to make another game for sure, it's like they have to prove themselves as being worthy of the honor of directing an Assassin's Creed game. And I think they'll handle it. As others have said previously on the subreddit and forums, another thing that makes me hopeful for the game is that there is a huge pattern in the AC series so far where Sometimes a game comes out that's kind of rocky and, mixed reception, but the next game after is like, whoa, that was great. AC2 followed AC1, which was okay and polarizing. AC4 followed AC3, which was okay and polarizing. Unity was okay and polarizing. The pattern would suggest that Syndicate will rock our socks off.
Next question comes from Eddie SC on the subreddit. He asks, what is your usual setup to record the podcast? Now, I am the one who usually runs/records the podcast. So usually we all organize a time that we want to record that works for everyone, including our guest, which is the time is organized by Aries. Then we all hop on a Skype call at that time. Then I whip up my program, which was suggested to me by Luma, who also uses it. It's called Audio Hijack Pro, which I don't think it's free. And then we just record and we pause between sections. And then that's pretty much actually. We record the intro, sections, outro, basically.
I record backups, and I will be the sole recorder of a couple episodes in future where Afti is going to be gone.
Aries?
I also have, for every episode, the discussion thread and the news stories of the week, I will occasionally whip up a notes corner, Aries' patented notes corner at the very bottom of the Google Doc that we use, where I'll write a few things that I want to talk about, like, this character says this, and it's cool because of this. Well, with all the Syndicate news on Tuesday, my notes corner was actually... So Aftermath was very, let's say, happy that I had so many notes in the Google Doc. Yeah. But every week I have my notes, and that's fun.
Cool. Next question comes from Greek Hole on the subreddit, who asks, what TV shows are you watching? And he meant either on air or off air. Currently, on Netflix, I don't actually watch regular TV, I only watch Netflix. I'm watching a TV show called The Almighty Johnsons, which I watched while I lived in New Zealand, which follows a group of families which are secretly Norse gods. And they live in New Zealand, and they go about things that involve Norse gods. It's epic, and you should check it out, especially if you want to learn more about New Zealand. Aries?
I don't really watch all that much TV. I watched The Daily Show. I watched Colbert until it was sadly ripped off the air. But I watch a lot of YouTube, Nerd Cubed, Funhouse. Those guys I quite enjoy.
Connor?
Funhouse.
Funhouse.
Let's see. As far as I watch a lot of Let's Plays, and although I know of Funhouse, I actually watch their parent company, Rooster Teeth, more. I watched Daredevil recently. Thought that was pretty fun. Actually, right now, since I finished Daredevil, I'm actually watching some older shows. I'm watching My Name is Earl, which I've never seen before, and it's funny. And I'm watching MASH, because MASH is awesome.
My dad's a big fan of MASH.
So is my dad.
He has every DVD or something like that. Lawson?
Yeah, the most recent TV show that I've watched was on Netflix. It was a lovely British sci-fi show called Black Mirror. I believe it's still ongoing, on hiatus for the moment, and it's kind of similar to The Twilight Zone in that every episode is completely separate from the others, different cast, different setting, different story, and they all revolve around really interesting, cerebral types of science fiction. So if you get into those sorts of movies, you'll really enjoy Black Mirror. I also love Daredevil, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and Fargo on Netflix.
Just listing all the TV shows you like.
I definitely have to agree with you on Black Mirror. I watched that for a bit, and I loved it, although I wouldn't suggest binge watching it, because you could cause you to have an existential crisis. But if you watch one a day, then it's very, very enjoyable, and I recommend it.
White Christmas has John Hamm.
Another one from Greg Hole. He asked, what other games do you play or are looking forward to, meaning outside of AC? I'll start off. Last night, I was actually playing some GTA 5 with TC, who was on the podcast last week, and Aries, and Putrid.
Hello.
And I'm currently looking forward to Arkham Knight, and which seems going to be like, I'm a big fan of the Arkham series, and looks like it's going to be really, really cool. And I just heard about Witcher 3 did really well in reviews, and from what I heard from the reviewer, it sounds amazing, and I think I'm going to check it out. Aries?
I've always loved the Uncharted series and the Infamous series a lot. Some PlayStation classics. Actually, just today, I re-downloaded Splinter Cell Blacklist on my PS3, and I'm probably going to give that a go because I adore that game so much. Outside of that, The Witcher 3 looks good, although I'm actually a bit scared to play it because it's bloody massive. But
I think 60 hours
Yeah.
for like a quick playthrough was what I was
No
hearing.
Man's Sky. I'm very
Yes.
excited for the one far off day when that game comes out. But yeah.
Connor?
Okay, No Man's Sky, The Witcher 3. I actually pre-ordered The Witcher 3. Sue me, I pre-ordered it because it got good reviews. Let's see, my other favorite series is probably Mass Effect. Some of those, I mean, there's only 3 of them, but I've probably replayed some of those games more than I've replayed any Assassin's Creed game. I know I've done Mass Effect 2 like 7 times. I'm looking forward to Arkham Knight, but it's not like super in my face right now because Witcher 3 is like right here. Apart from that, I want to get Bloodborne, but it's kind of taking a second priority right now. So I guess, yeah.
Because you're a filthy casual.
No, come on. I actually replay games a lot just because I don't have money to get a game every day. Oh, I just finished Thomas Was Alone. Thomas Was Alone.
That game.
Awesome.
I love that game. I don't think I finished it yet, though. Lawson?
Oh, also something.
Yeah, so like everyone else, basically, I'm really excited for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. It looks like it could be the next Skyrim-esque major game. But this is probably the first year that all of the games on the top of my hype lists are actually indie titles. Like Aries mentioned, No Man's Sky, which, of course, while being an indie title, is still super ambitious and insane. But also Worlds Adrift, which I don't know if many people have heard of it. It's by Bossa Studios, and it's a serious game, even though it's by the same people who made Surgeon Simulator and I Am Bread. But it's a really cool sort of physics-based, open-world, persistent, but procedurally generated MMO, similar in art style to No Man's Sky, but involves you building your own ships and battling other people with them while flying off of them with ropes. It looks insanely cool, and I'm very excited.
Next question we have comes from the AC subreddit moderator Tyrol, who we'll have to have on the subreddit sometime. I mean, shit. We'll have to have him on the podcast sometime. He's always on the subreddit. What he asks,
subreddit right now.
He probably is. He asks, what is the best thing about Assassin's Creed right now? And what is the worst? Best thing about the entire series right now is Derby. Worst thing...
That's a fact.
Worst thing about the entire series right now is Amancio. Aries.
Ooh,
Getting personal there.
That's harsh.
Yikes.
I'd say the best thing about Assassin's Creed is just the unbelievable amounts of depth that go into the Assassin-Templar conflict. I was going to talk about the movement, the free running, but I have to say that just the overall, the thing that this game does that no other really game that I've ever seen does is just the philosophical banter is fantastic in so many ways. What's the worst thing? I would probably have to say just all of the hate. We get it. Unity wasn't all that great. You don't need to shout about it all the time every day and say you be shit is the worst thing in the world. I'm not a fan of the hate.
Connor?
Okay, I think I will say the movement is the best thing. I think that parkour in games is the best it's ever been with Assassin's Creed Unity. I would have talked about like the amazing, incredible settings. Like the settings are always really well done, landmarks are always really well done. But I guess what I've realized is that you can have that really well done, but that's like what Assassin's Creed always does, so it's no longer like an impressive thing, I guess. Like, because that's just the routine now. But I would say the worst thing is probably, I would agree with Aries, but if I'm going to say something different, then I'll probably say Unity's modern day was pretty shit. Just not good. Yeah.
Lawson?
Connor kind of stole my answer. Not on purpose. That's a joke. But yeah, I
That's on
think the
purpose.
park. Yeah,
I entered into
you
a heist.
incepted me. Is that what happened? But the parkour in Assassin's Creed is the best parkour that has ever been in any game ever. But I think that the graphics of Unity and the design of Paris were probably the most impressive graphics I've seen on any game ever. And I hope that is a trend that will continue. From what we've seen of Syndicate so far, although it lacks polish in the pre-alpha state that it's in, it looks to continue that trend in a way that I'm really excited
Assassin's
for.
Creed has always kind of pushed the graphical edge, and it's still doing it.
Yeah.
And as far as the
good or
worst thing
bad.
about the series right now, I'd say that the worst thing about the series is Ubisoft.
Oh, shit.
They make a lot of poor decisions, and those corporate-minded decisions do affect the quality of the game, although I understand and empathize with them because, after all, corporations are existing to make money. I think that we're learning in this time that companies tend to do better in the internet age when they put the consumers first. I think EA learned that when they were the big whipping boy of the games market, and Ubisoft is kind of filling that role right now for a lot of people. I think they'll learn the same lessons EA did. I think EA has been a good boy for a little while now.
Yeah.
Ubisoft should follow suit. So yeah, that's my answer.
I'm going to make a little sub thing. I think the best hope for Assassin's Creed, the future of Assassin's Creed right now, is Mark Alexei Cote.
Yeah.
He's the next Ashraf Ishmael.
Oh, I love Ash. He's really good as well. Lawson, I really agree with your point on Ubisoft themselves, and I have to sympathize with Ubisoft Montreal because I feel, we don't know for certain, but it definitely feels like a lot of the bad things that were wrong with Unity was actually dictated by the higher-ups, the people who were there specifically to make money and they want to see. But Ubisoft Incorporated probably had a hand in what ended up being bad in Unity, and less so Ubisoft Montreal did, like the microtransactions and the companion app having a paywall for some reason, and those small things that really diminish the quality of Unity, I don't think were choices by Ubisoft Montreal. Now, for a real answer, my favorite thing about AC right now would definitely be the depth they go into with the history. Less so with Unity, but in the past, I'm a big fan of history, and that's definitely thanks to AC. They made history very interesting. They made it, there were stories, everyone that lived in these amazing cultures and cities and everything from the past, everyone has a story, everything, so much interesting stuff was happening, and it doesn't have to have assassins in it for it to be interesting to me, which I really love that AC did that to me, and that they've allowed me to look at that. And Unity's novel definitely focused on the French Revolution a lot more, so I think Unity still kind of provided that aspect for me either way. And the worst thing right now, what used to be the best thing, would be the modern day. As Connor, I believe you said, it wasn't, I have no idea who said it. Someone said it. Aries? Someone said it.
It was me.
Connor said it. I'm not paying enough attention. But yes, definitely right. I used to be the biggest fan of the modern day. The sci-fi aspect, the historical fiction aspect, it used to be definitely amazing, and I am currently waiting for them to bring us back to that point. Next question comes from Pixie. As you may remember him from one of the other episodes on the podcast. I should memorize these. He asks, how long do you see the podcast running? 10, 20, 30 episodes more? Is there any special episodes coming in the near future?
Well, this is a special episode.
Yes, this is a special episode. My current goal is 52 episodes without missing a week, which, for those who are not used to English
Conversions.
year, or the English year, or conversions, that is 1 year. And that's without missing an episode, which I really hope to go for, which the Assassin's Creed Community Podcast has already failed a few times.
Ooh,
They've failed since like our episode on there.
Yes, they have. They just missed 2 weeks. They haven't had an episode in 2 weeks, and before that, they just missed an episode in 2 weeks.
Who's counting?
I am.
Mr. Mathis.
I definitely.
We have a secret rivalry with them.
I'm heading for 52 episodes as my first goal, and from then on, Who knows? I don't see us stopping anytime soon. As long as
Until we die.
as long as
Until Darby is a guest on the podcast. Once that happens,
After that, we
nothing
can go
can
home. But until then,
don't even talk about that. It just gets me flustered thinking about it. As long as the thing isn't AC to talk about, and as long as we're all fans of AC, then there will be a podcast. As far as I'm concerned. This man with a fantastic username, which I'm just going to call him FHT, asks, what are the two parts to the Phantom Blade? I'm going to take a wild guess here and say those would be the blade and the Phantom.
no, it's the Darth Maul and double-sided lightsaber. You're wrong.
Yes. Connor, what do you think?
It's the blade and the double-sided lightsaber.
Yes. Lawson, what do you think?
It's a dart gun, guys. Why can't we fucking call it a dart gun?
I don't know about
Let's
that.
have that cool name like Phantom Blade.
What are the two parts?
They've been
Two
doing
parts.
projectiles since AC2. This isn't new.
Two parts.
Did they ever confirm it was a dart gun? I think it's probably a lightsaber.
It has two parts, the hook and the Nicolas Cage meme.
I could never find the blades again, so
Yeah.
they were probably
excited about the
lightsabers.
sword cane. Sword cane has two parts, of course: the sword and the cane.
No, it actually has
So you
the
can use
side
one or
blade
the other.
and the sword blade.
Yeah, that's right. It has
That
like.
looks so
As a
cool.
scythe. Okay, now,
I've never purchased
now
a replica.
guys, we're talking about them in a few minutes. Next question comes from Ocean
Sorry.
King on the subreddit, who has apparently made a new shipping couple all by himself, and he asks Jacob, yes or no? That of
No,
course would
Shaken
be
for life.
that would be the constituent parts of Shay and Jacob. What do you think, Aries?
Ocean King, I'm sure you're a lovely person, but you've
no.
got to get this wacky idea out of your head. It's Shatham, and it will always be Shatham. There is nothing you can do to break that up. Don't even try, because I will stop you myself.
Well, I'm actually slightly biased because I got into an argument with this person on the subreddit today. I'm just going to say simply no.
Okay, awesome.
The first thing I thought when I looked at the question list and saw Jacob was, how have I not seen this already? Like, how was that not the first thing everyone thought and said on the subreddit? Why didn't I think of it? It was so painfully obvious.
Sounds like it has to do with corn.
Probably.
Shay on the cob.
Yeah.
Shay on the cob?
I'm actually
Someone
thinking,
Photoshop that.
Nice.
Please don't.
I'm making it happen
I'm
ASAP.
actually thinking a little outside the box here. Evio. It's you and Evie. What do you
Oh,
think?
I like that. I like that.
Sounds like a
Good.
breakfast cereal.
EVO?
Well, so does Shaden. And so do Lucky Charms.
I hope to see this fan art soon.
And we've come full circle.
All right, next question.
Putrid, my good friend Putrid asks, what would be your dream team for an AC game? I believe he's referencing writers, things like that. I'll start us off.
I think he stole that question from me. What? Buckets.
I think Darby would be a writer, and then everyone else would be his writing team. And I don't know who my favorite creative director would be. Maybe Ash would. Ash got the job done with AC4, I think. Darby wrote it well, and Ash achieved everything he was aiming, I think. Mm-hmm. Alex Hutchinson, who directed AC3 and Far Cry 4, he fell kind of below. I think AC3 wasn't up to him because he probably would have delayed it given the chance. But thanks to time constraints, and they set the date for December 21st, 2012, he didn't quite hit that mark of perfection of a finished game. But I think Ash
I would say
did.
post Far Cry 4, Alex Hutchinson, yes. Post Far Cry 4.
If Far Cry 4 had a good writer, then I would agree with you. So, I agree actually. Far Cry 4 does what it aims to do. It's a open world first person shooter, and it does that well. So my dream team is Darby as the writer. Let's say Yubi Quebec will be the full studio. And then Alex Hutchinson is the creative director. Aries?
Okay. I think if we don't all say Darby, then one of us just failed horribly. Darby would write. Corey May would be in the back, kind of leaning over his shoulder, looking at what he's doing to make sure he's on track. But Darby needs no help. He is a god among men. The creative director would be Ash, of course. Ash is love. Ash is life. Roger Craig Smith would do all of the voices, all of them. It would be led by... I'm going to say UB Montreal, keep it simple, and it would be set in ancient Greece during the Peloponnesian War, goddammit.
That's not the question. We're not asking setting here, Aries. Come on. You can't take us off track like that. Connor?
Well, I'm going to start with a different interpretation of this question. My AC Dream Team would be all the assassins at the same time, taking on whatever Templars in whatever fiction. But actually...
I'm sure they'd all communicate very well, as Ezio was just speaking Italian at Jacob, and Jacob's all like, what the fuck, mate?
I think it would be fun just to have like a really self-referential like DLC or something, but not going to happen. I don't care.
With the magic of the Animus, anything is possible.
But that's my answer because Aries basically said my entire answer, especially the thing about Corey May. I'm really...
We'll get into Corey May in a second.
Yeah.
Lawson?
I don't pay that much attention to who writes and directs these things, so I'm going to say Vince Gilligan, Gabe Newell, and Darby McDarby, Darbyson. Darbatron 5.
Okay. That's a very, very strange answer, because Gabe Newell hasn't made a game in his life.
Well, we're past 3 at least. We don't have to worry about that.
He's just going to sit in on the meetings and bless the room with his...
oh, yeah, sure. Okay, that's good. Glad we went that way. Peace and Master Race. This next question also comes from Putrid. He asks, what improvements do you think could be made to the future Chronicles titles to make them better games?
There would be a story.
Yes, that was in my answer. Let's just take Darby from the current SC game he's working on. Just pick him up to the UK. He can go live in Ireland again if he wants. And then just plop him down right on top of the Climax Studios. And then he can go and be given a James Bond-style license to kill and murder their entire current story team. And then he goes out and he finds his own perfect story team with him,
Which is just him
at the lead. With full
He's the whole team.
Creative control over it. I definitely think that would be best for everyone, and that would make me appreciate the Chronicles titles a lot more. Because gameplay-wise, they're pretty much perfect, but story-wise, they all need to be shot.
Well, Assassin's Creed Chronicles needs to be shot. Let's not jump to conclusions yet.
Aries?
I gave my answer. There'd be a story. That's it.
Oh, yeah,
that's the only thing that I think is wrong with him.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way I'd go, I think. Although, I don't know, I would change the achievements up because they're really imbalanced. Because the game heavily emphasizes you should do stealth, and then there are achievements that are like, use the helix kill 100 times, which is ridiculous, because why would you ever do that? You're supposed to stealth this game. So I guess they should either redo the achievements with more of a focus on stealth, or they should diversify the game more, maybe make the other 2 ratings equal to Shadow, just so that you can do it that way if you want and still get the 100% score. Because, there's like an achievement to like Shadow every level, and then there's an achievement to get the maximum score on every level. So those are the same thing.
Yeah.
Not necessary.
Yeah, I agree. Lawson?
I haven't finished Chronicles China.
God damn it, Lawson. Come
Not
on.
missing one.
I've been busy, and I want to finish it. It's on my list of things to do this weekend. But I have to ask you, Afti, if Darby McDevitt was actually working on an AC game right now, is it confirmed that he is?
I believe... No, it's not. We know he's on the AC narrative team. So he wrote the little database modern day aspects for Unity, for example. I don't know if he's leading a game at the moment.
If he's leading the writing of a game at the moment, would you actually take him away from that to put him on Chronicles?
That is a difficult question.
It would take him a day, honestly, to write a better story than they did.
Yes, Chronicles is so short, as we mentioned with why they should have brought on Roger Craig Smith. It's very short, that they could have probably written a better game, and I think maybe just delay this hypothetical derby game by a week, and that will fix both India and Russia, because I know they're probably going to do the same mistake, and then we'll still get a full-fledged AC game out the side, and we'll know exactly why that next AC game is 1 week late. Some of you may not know that you can actually send in questions every single week to us. So you think of something that you want to hear us talk about specifically or to answer, then you can send an email to animuspodcast@gmail.com, or you can PM me on Reddit, which is reddit.com/u/ultimate1231, or any of the others. Or you can PM me or tweet me on Twitter, which is twitter.com/aftermath1231.
This week's very short discussion thread will be on George Monro, who appears in AC Rogue. So if you haven't played that, go away because there will be spoilers. He is the character who Shay is introduced to very shortly after he falls off a cliff and is betrayed by and betrays the assassins. And he's essentially the guy who makes him into a Templar. So since we really don't have a lot to say about him, I just want to say the thing that I want to say, which is that what I really like about Monro is that his ideals are basically the perfect set of Templar ideals, that he embodies the golden cage mentality perfectly, where he actually cares about what goes on in the colonies. And he says, I don't really care about money. I just want to make the colonies a better, safe place. And by being a Templar and controlling the little bits of the colonies that he does, he can make the world a better place. And through Shay, he does that too. So he says, like, hey, first thing you're going to do as a Templar is go over there and help fix up that church, because it looks a little bit run down. So it's not about like, oh, let's be evil and take over the world like the assassins think the Templars do. Monro is all about being a good person. And it's almost, being a Templar is secondary to trying to make the world a better place. And that's what I really love about Monro, is he's the perfect gentleman Templar.
And then Jermaine came along and was like, New World Order, motherfuckers. One thing I want to point out is that his voice actor, Graham Cuthbertson, also voices Benedict Arnold in AC3 and Clay Kazmarek, Subject 16, in Revelations, which I think just really illustrates just how skilled some of these voice actors are, because I had no idea.
Yeah, not a clue. That's insane. Anyone else have something? Because I'd like to add one thing before we finish up and move on to Syndicate. Nothing? Fantastic.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing is that if you've played 3 and also Rogue, you may notice that there are some striking similarities between Monro's character design visually and also Shay and Hatham, or Shatham, you may say. I think he's actually a perfect balance between the two, because he has the tri-corner hat, which is Hatham. He's got Shay's little shoulder thing on his coat, and he has a very similar coat style to Hatham. So I think it's very interesting that he's visually a split between the two, because philosophically and in terms of his character traits, he is very much a split between Hatham and Shay. And although he's a secondary character, I think it's really neat the way he's portrayed and designed, because there are a lot of really interesting thematic things that involve his character.
Does he have a tricorn or bicorn hat?
It's a hat, close enough.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. So the big news this week was that Assassin's Creed Syndicate was announced on Tuesday, which is all very exciting. And with that came the what we're known for a little while is that this is going to be the first game that's developed by Ubisoft Quebec.
Headed by.
Have they worked on
They've
other games
developed
before?
other games, but this is the first game that they're leading.
Yeah, I suppose they've just like Ubisoft Singapore works on some sounds in AC4. I guess they kind of developed in, but this is definitely the first one they're leading, and they've worked on Freedom Cry and Tyranny King Washington in the past, which were I believe Refreshing Choir is easily a fan favorite, while Tyranny King Washington is a bit split, but most people that played it, from what I've heard, enjoyed it. In addition to, let me bring up the quick plug, Assassin's Creed Wiki, my subreddit wiki, Syndicate archive, definitely check it out. We have the creative director, as we mentioned earlier on the podcast, Mark Alexi Corte. Lead writer is Jeffrey Yohalem, who worked on The Lost Archive and then Brotherhood and AC2's The Truth.
And Dead Kings.
And Dead Kings, yes, sorry. He also wrote Dead Kings. The narrative director is Corey May, who wrote AC3 and several AC games before that. I can't recall which. And Jacob Fry.
2. He wrote 2.
He wrote 2. Yes, actually,
And 1,
I should mention that. Jeffrey and Corey both worked on 2, and as they mentioned, it's basically like the Assassin's Creed 2 team reuniting. And Jacob Fry is played by Paul Amos, who is on this TV show. I haven't heard about it myself. And Evie, my personal theory is that she's voiced by Victoria Atkin. And who's Henry Green voiced by, that we believe? I don't know, look it up in a second. But yes. So quick thoughts on Ubisoft Quebec and that cast.
I think the cast looks great, honestly. They all seem very excited. Especially Mark Alexi Cote. And I think he especially inspires a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we were talking about our dream team earlier. That's like at least a half of most of our dream teams. Would you agree, Lawson? Dream team, yes, no?
Yep. Gabe Newell's in there, I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm Darby McDarby.
Yes. I'm sure. As we mentioned earlier, we're going to try not to retread too much, but I'm very excited to see what Quebec brings to the table. And the writing team seems great, and Cortez seems great, and it's all very interesting. Jazz Diol is who we believe is Henry Green, which should be interesting. I don't know any of his works either.
Alrighty.
Cool. What's next on the list of things to talk about? Setting.
The setting.
Victorian
setting.
London. This is the first time since Assassin's Creed 1 that we're only taking place in 1 year, and that year is 1868.
Which a lot of people have been asking why specifically that year, because there wasn't a lot of stuff in terms of events, but as Aftermath pointed out on the subreddit, it's the time when all the people that Ubisoft wanted to be in the game were alive so they could actually be in the game.
Yes.
It seems to be mostly a people reason.
When they were in London, which is a big part.
Yes, when they were in London.
Of that, we know of... Actually, we'll get to characters in the story section. How about that? I'm very excited to see Victorian London, personally.
Victorian London was for a while it was my dream setting for Assassin's Creed. Now that we know it's happening, I guess my dream setting has moved on, but I'm still very excited. I mean, London is now modern day like my favorite city on earth, and I'm just really excited to go back there, honestly.
I think with the setting, there are two things we have to consider. There's the setting of the Victorian era, and there's the setting of London. With the setting of the Victorian era, one of the things that they were very keen to point out was that it was a time of a lot of change where everything was ruled by money and things were getting simultaneously better and worse. So I think
Britain's at the height of one of its empires at the moment.
Yeah.
The sun never sets for the British Empire, which means
it was also a time of peace.
Yeah. Which they're very excited to point out as well, because we haven't really had a time of peace since Assassin's Creed 2, and I guess the Ezio trilogy as a whole. But
Revelations, they just capped off the war with the Byzantines.
One really cool thing that they can do with the Victorian era is because of the emergence of capitalism in the era, they can get towards the more modern idea of Templars as the capitalists who control the business world. And this is the first time that really started to happen, so they can play around with that as the Templars controlling the world through money, specifically with this era, and I think that's very interesting.
Now, one thing that I should point out, the community has already noticed a piece of historical inaccuracy in this setting.
oh yeah,
On the train, there is the British Railways logo. The game is set in 1868, and British Railways was founded in 1949.
It's only like slightly less than 100 years. That's not too bad.
Yeah. Fair enough. Next thing we're talking about, the story. Now, Jacob and Evie, twins, born in Crawley. I'm pretty sure that's not how a British person would pronounce it, but that's how a Kiwi would pronounce it. Born out, which is a small town outside London, and when they're 21, which is in 1868, they moved to London to go take back the city from the Templars.
What I really like about that aspect of the story is that with Far Cry 4, they made a big point about and the narrative content being united in your goal to get control back over Kirat. And I think what they're doing in Syndicate, I'm trying not to call it Victory, but with Syndicate, they can do a really cool marriage of main and side content where the story missions and also the side things you do all play into the overall narrative of taking back London. And one of the problems with Unity was the side content and the main story were so wildly divergent from each other in terms of what was going on and the motivations you had to do them, that I think having this unity, for lack of a better word, between the two will be very conducive to telling a meaningful story.
Yeah, that seems to be a lot what is happening, because Marc-Alexis Cote, in an interview with Game Informer, said that he really likes the open world setup because you know who all the Templars are and you know you have to go take them out, which, without totally saying it in the quote, makes it seem more obvious, but it sounds a lot like you can kind of at least take the story in the order you want.
Yes.
To some extent.
Which is very reminiscent of AC1.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I'm very excited for is that this is the first time since AC1 that Jacob and Evie that the main characters are actually raised as assassins from birth.
Yes.
Well, you could argue Assassin's Creed 2, because he was technically, but then he was interrupted.
But he wasn't raised as an assassin. He only began his training when his parents died. He wasn't an assassin. He wasn't known that he was going to be an assassin from birth. And he wasn't raised by assassin parents and semantics. But I definitely consider this the first time since AC1 that they are raised directly as assassins.
Yeah, good that there is no origin story. Also, to the earlier point of how the game will resemble earlier games like AC1, to pick on China, Chronicles China, what that did very poorly was, here's a Templar, you killed him. Oh, look, here's another Templar, go kill him. And it's just stringing along Templars. Whereas AC1 and AC2 did a very good job of introducing a cast sort of all at once, and then you work your way through them so you actually know who the people are. Even AC3 did that very well. And I think that the games that do introduce you to the Templars and then set you on them have much better stories overall than the ones that string characters along.
Though I guess this is a midpoint, but I thought AC2 did it really well, where you didn't know all the Templars right up front, but they were at least set up before you actually assassinated them. Whereas Unity, it's like, who is this person? Why am I killing them? Well, they're dead. Okay, whatever. Yeah, that was kind of similar with.
One thing that plays into that, one thing that Unity did wrong in that aspect was that they threw a whole bunch of different French names at me, and as an Anglophile, that I just couldn't keep track of it. I was just getting lost. What's the difference between Le Pelletier and Sévère? Where's how do I spell that? They never demonstrated how to spell that, so I couldn't imagine it. Exactly, La Pelletier and La Freniere. I didn't know the difference until my second playthrough, and I knew who was who from the beginning. I'm glad that we're going to go back to English names from the start. And they didn't provide the handy menu like AC2 did to see who the conspirators are.
Oh, that menu was wonderful.
Yeah.
I also liked AC2 gave you the little videos in the database, like a quick background on the character narrated by Sean.
That was really cool.
Yeah, none of the rest of them have ever done that, and I'm
Those were
very
so
sad. Yeah, they were fun too.
I only realized I had that until my third playthrough, which is probably why the others didn't have it, because no one realized it.
They're kind of out of the way. You have to go into the database and you have to see the notification that's like, hey, press this button.
Yeah. As mentioned, Jacob meets Charles Darwin and Charles Dickens, which is confirmed, which is very interesting, and this plays into why they set it in 1868 specifically. Do we have any theories about why he's meeting these two historical characters?
No. Honestly, I don't.
Perhaps
I think
Darwin's.
you'll probably run into Dickens actually in a slum because Dickens is known to have written several novels that, if they don't take place entirely in the slums, they feature slums in them. Namely, like Oliver Twist is one.
It could be a propaganda campaign. That could be cool.
Yeah, that could be cool. Perhaps Darwin is stirring waters that he doesn't want to be involved in the Templars are targeting him.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps he's getting too close to the knowledge of the first Civ, and the Templars want to keep that under control.
That would be really cool.
That's probably that would actually make a lot of sense, especially since I don't know I don't know if we've confirmed them outside pre-order DLC missions. I guess
We have not.
Yeah, since they're in pre-order DLC missions, that's kind of what it sounds like it's going to be to me. Is like a quick mission, like, hey, this person got a bit close to this. Go protect them. Hooray, you're done. Yeah. And that's kind of what it was in Unity. Honestly, there haven't really been good exclusive missions since like the Copernicus missions for Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
That was actually a full sequence as opposed to like one thing with the Chemical Revolution mission, which is a little one-off.
Oh, God. I really hope we meet them outside, and I hope we haven't really had a good friend, historical character that really flesh out their personality since Leonardo. So I hope we see them.
Blackbeard, please.
Yeah, I guess, but we don't know
Leonardo.
much about him either way. You
Fair.
know, they really meshed with Leonardo. They really meshed in with what they wanted to do with his historical personality, which we know quite a bit about. But Blackbeard's very mysterious, and they added that friendly aspect to him, which I really liked, but it's not quite the same thing.
Lawson, do you have any hopes for the Syndicate story or characters you'd like us to see?
Honestly, I don't know a whole lot about the time period, and all of the characters that I would have really jumped out and said, yes, if you're going to London, do these, are all people that weren't there or weren't old enough in 1868. So I really have nothing there. Although, I'm just going to say this quickly, one thing that I did want to add earlier, didn't get a chance to slip it in there, is that I'm really excited that we're getting a pair of twin boy-girl assassins, because my sister, I have a twin sister, and she likes to watch me play Assassin's Creed. She's watched me play all the games, so even though she hasn't played them herself, she's like into the lore, and she's really excited about that, and we might put something together like a cosplay for.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Continue.
I like how you can switch between, or supposedly be able to switch between Jacob and Evie, sort of like in GTA 5.
We'll get to that into the gameplay section. Mm-hmm. Now, the Fry's gang is called the Rooks. Now, this is the fourth time that a main character has been referred to as something other than an eagle. It's starting to become not very unique, I have to say. Because Connor was a wolf, for the most part. Edward was the jackdaw.
Which was actually really well done.
Yeah,
yes.
They played into Aesop's Fable there. And Shay was the hawk, I believe. And so now Jacob here is a wolf.
Shay was also the wolf, too, but that's irrelevant.
Well, the Morrigan, more specifically. But that's because, hey, Irish. Hooray.
Hey, Irish, yeah.
With regard to the gangs, I'd like to say that, although this hasn't been confirmed, my Ares patented speculation is that recruits will be back, but different. So I would like to think of it as a mix between the assassins from AC Brotherhood and the factions in AC2. It's been noted in Cote's interview with Game Informer that as you liberate boroughs, there will be more available recruits, which means that recruits will be, by inference, available kind of in the streets and around the city to pick up, sort of like how they were in AC2.
You've made it extremely obvious you haven't read the archive, because that's confirmed, and we know that they can walk with you wherever you're going. They just stay with you. And, for example, when you steal a carriage, if you have...
the AI will jump in. I was going to get to that.
If you have 5 guys with you, 4 of them will hop in the back of the cart, and the fifth... Well, 3 guys...
And the other 2,
depending on the size. And then the other 2 will hop in a different carriage and follow you.
So, yes, very exciting.
So, rolling with your homies is now a thing in Assassin's Creed. Although it was kind of a thing in Unity, but we don't get that back.
Fucking vehicles. Shit. One thing we saw in the trailer was that Clara, a street girl / worker at the tavern that will be the home base of the Fries, works as an informant for them, which is interesting.
And she's a booze hound, too.
Yes, which also confirms that we now have children walking the streets for the first time since AC3.
Oh God.
I would hope they're better done. I would expect they're better done because I don't think they're going to serve the same harasser purpose. Especially because this new kind of generation of Assassin's Creed games so far has not had harasser AI.
Thank Christ.
The crowds did that for them in Unity.
Just by being in the way, kind of.
Just
but
being in the way all the
I
time.
honestly, I wouldn't change that. I think that Unity's crowds were fantastic.
Yeah. Next, we're talking about Henry Green, who was in the trailer.
Well, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Henry is a Indian immigrant to London early on in his life, as far as we know, and he is features as the mentor for the English assassins, or at least the London assassins. I think it's very, very interesting that they're playing into the British Empire aspect, that London is the cultural hub for all of these different places because they're this massive empire. And I like that. Playing into that, Jacob has his kukri, which is from Nepal. And I love how the description says, like, from the other side of the British Empire, which is really cool.
I think that Alexei Cote was being a little bit cagey about this during his Game Informer interview. But I suspect Mark Alexei, right? I forgot his first name.
It's Mark Alexei. So
I suspect that we will get some sort of running across to other little bits of the British Empire for one-off sort of set-piece missions, like we did with AC Brotherhood in the Leonardo's Inventions mission. So I suspect we'll have something like that.
Just because it feels like we haven't really had exotic gameplay for a while. Which was a big thing when they were talking about those missions in the lead up to Brotherhood, was like, we want to, you got to have something to change it up every once in a while. And then they kind of had that with Assassin's Creed 3 with the ships, but then the ships became the main thing.
Yeah.
And Unity didn't really have any side things at all.
None at all.
Well, they're the riffs.
Well,
those were still like parkour.
Yeah.
You were doing the same thing.
Aftermath, though, to your point, we were sort of talking about this earlier, but time anomalies, we got to have those back because those were fantastic. Maybe the Rift missions collecting the collection.
Stuff.
Yeah, those were
and
those
take
were kind
out
of
Bishop screaming my fucking ear all the time. Holy crap.
Yeah,
I actually turned off the voice when I was replaying those. I turned off the voice because she was so annoying. And I forgot to turn it back on when I was playing through the story again. Okay.
But there are a lot of possibilities. Time anomalies. You can do ancient Roman Empire in Britain. You can do British Renaissance. You can do modern day Britain. The possibilities are endless.
I think that'd be fun to do modern day Britain. Just, I don't know, end up in the Gherkin. That would be fun.
Okay. Before we move on, British Empire, can we please visit colonial New Zealand? Like, come on, guys. Like, New Zealand's a country and we haven't visited it yet. Like,
just for you, Afty.
Jeez, like,
just for you.
We can go and we can participate in the multi-land wars. Like, that's the most interesting thing ever, and I bet everyone's asked for that.
You know, they're listening to this podcast right now. I know everyone at Ubisoft is. They watch us religiously, and they're going to put that mission in just for you, Aftermath. Mark my words.
Well, Escoblades does.
I know Esco listens to it, but he's not everyone. I don't think he's on the development either.
He does things. He'll redo Initiates themed entirely with New Zealand
and Derby. Derby. Next, we're going to talk about Jacob and Evie's story, their personal story. Jacob is definitely more of a... he's described as a charismatic brawler and always ready for a fight, while Evie prefers stealth over her brother's brawler style.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing with this is everyone's like, oh, he's another charismatic character. Ugh, enough of these. I think the reason that isn't a problem is because he's not the only character. If he was the only protagonist, a charismatic brawler, yeah, okay, we've had enough of those. But since there are actually two protagonists that can play off of each other, I think it's actually good that we have these two caricatures of one is very thoughtful and stealthy, one is very loud and brawling and charismatic. So I think it's really cool that
also
they
since they're going with the gang angle, I think it makes sense to have, especially since there are two leaders of the gangs, it makes sense to have an upfront, in-your-face person to kind of emphasize, the lower class ruggedness, I guess, the brashness of these gangs.
Next, I find it very, very strange how they're very, very different. I think that would have to be explained that they're trained by different people. That's the only way I can explain it. These two, if they were both raised assassins, they'd have to be trained by different people to be so different. I don't think you can just naturally lie over one way, even if you're trained the exact same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Playing into that, Evie is far more idealistic and closer to the Creed, and Jacob perceives the rugged London poor as natural allies to the cause. And if they both have the same philosophy teacher, then how are they so different? I don't understand. I hope they explain this.
Different people take lessons differently. I mean, that's just a human thing. But I like how they'll play off each other like that.
They're pretty much opposite, you know?
Maybe they spent some time doing different things in different parts of the Empire.
That's what I'm saying. I hope that they were trained by different people at some point. They went and did different things. They weren't living in Crawley their whole life.
I was just
real quick note on. No, go ahead.
I was really thinking in the lead up to the stream reveal that I was really thinking that we'd see a much older protagonist. I was thinking that perhaps Ubisoft would be as tired as brash, bold white guys as we were, and maybe try to think out of the box. Obviously, I think the twin sister thing will provide enough of a difference to keep it interesting, but I have to say I was really intrigued by the idea of having an older, sort of like dry wit kind of protagonist that I once likened perhaps to Colin Firth's character in the film Kingsman. And if you've seen it, you know
that is a fantastic movie, and Colin Firth is awesome in it.
Totally recommend it. His character very similar to what I was expecting from Syndicate.
Now, if you've read the articles, you'll know that stealth has made a big change in Syndicate. Basically, completely, the fundamental aspect of Unity is its shitty cover system. I don't know why they didn't take Watch Dogs' cover system, which is brilliant, but for some reason they made their own.
Or Splinter Cell's.
I've actually played Splinter Cell, but...
Oh, it's so good.
Splinter Cell's pretty good.
So they've switched it out from Unity's hard snap, shitty version to this new soft snap, far more modern style. And if you've played Last of Us, you'll know what the soft snap style is. And I really like the sound of that so far.
Yeah, that... Also, I think, there's some. I'm trying to think of more games that do it. Tomb Raider does it. There are some games that still do hardcover, like
Watch Dogs.
Yeah, and Uncharted. Mass Effect hasn't had a new game in a couple of years, but it did hardcover.
From what we've seen of Uncharted 4, though, it seems like it's taking Last of Us' footsteps.
Yeah. Quick thing. Actually, several things. Hallucinogenic darts, I know it's just a renamed Berserk dart, which is kind of annoying, but I like how there's a big emphasis on manipulating your environment. So with the hallucinogenic darts, one of the big things in the gameplay demo is that he shot it into a fire pit, and then it caused a huge explosion, which was really cool and very clever. But also one of the big bits of the media coverage was that stealth will be less focused on social stealth and more focused on environmental stealth, which makes me really hope that we have stealth like Splinter Cell, which means we'll have a darkness and light system.
Yeah.
Please, God, it's the Victorian era. It's really dark at night. Can we please have that? That's all I really want.
I found the social... I think the less emphasis on social stuff is very strange, given that they just worked on a huge crowd system, and now suddenly we're branching away from that, with the reason being that when you're walking the London slums and you're the leader of the most powerful gang in the city, you don't need to hide who you are, was what they said.
It makes sense.
I think the environmental takedowns could be disappointing for a number of reasons. I've seen them done in Sleeping Dogs, which is a fantastic game. I really enjoyed it. But it was really cool and interesting at the beginning, and then by the end you realized you were seeing the same ones over and over and over again, and suddenly it felt pretty boring in comparison to what you were expecting. And I know that in the demo video, they probably did the one where he shoots down the, I don't know what it's called, but it's like there's a rope and a bunch of stuff, and he drops it on the people. That was probably at least 2 or 3 times in the demo video alone. I don't think that bodes well at all. I think it'll end up being a lot like crowd events where people will go, hey, that was a really good idea, but it needed more variety to work.
It was really, really... The crowd events were really epic for the first half an hour, and then they were just like, the same bitch is yelling about someone stealing your handbag again. Could you hold on to your handbag a little bit better? Like, come on.
That's my money you just took from me.
Really quick, to the point of the barrels hanging, I really like the idea, but the animation was so bad. It falls, stays there for a second, and then ricochets everywhere, and the guy ragdolls. Some of the animations were looking really ragged. I know it's pre-alpha, I know, but still, I wasn't especially pleased with a lot of them.
One thing that's very interesting that we haven't seen in a game like this before with Stealth is that he actually wears something other than a hood occasionally. And so
Yes.
when walking around normally, he wears his top hat, which is very common for a Victorian man. And then as soon as he goes into stealth mode, he flips it off, flips up the hood, and is crouching, which I really like.
I would wonder
cool.
how much, because we know that there's customization coming back, I would wonder whether you get to customize the hood and the top hat, or just the hood, or just the top hat, or maybe since they're switching them out, they just said fuck it and didn't either. But
yeah, that's interesting, actually. I hadn't thought of that.
Because if we could swap out the top hat for a bowler hat or whatever, that would be fun.
A big thing
I want to have the robes from the original Victory Leaks back, because I thought those robes were really cool.
I expect those will show up in like DLC, like the robes from the initial Unity Leak showed up in DLC.
Yeah.
A big emphasis they're putting on Syndicate is the new form of navigation, which is splitting the community for the most part. The new rope dart attached to the assassin gauntlet he has, which allows him to both rappel up the sides of buildings at breakneck speeds and also create a zip line across buildings.
And tight ropes.
Does he use it as a tightrope, though?
It's been said in the GI article that there is a tightrope effect.
Interesting.
Or maybe that was GameSpot, I don't know. But it was mentioned that there's a tightrope.
And I can't remember who mentioned it, but on the development team, but that makes every single airspace in London an opportunity for an air assassination.
Yes.
Which I really like.
Very cool.
But a lot of people are just saying he's now Batman.
Which, I mean, there's really nothing wrong with that. Batman in a top hat, yeah, I'll take it.
I mean, honestly, I think with they've added in two new major things to navigation, which are the vehicles and the rope thing, and I think that'll at least give it an advantage over Unity in variety. So it's not like you always have to do this. You have some choice in how you want to get around the city and what you want to do.
I'm just afraid that just like with Tyranny King Washington, after having this new power, that climbing is going to get old. Or with riding carriages, that running your road is going to get old. And the next AC game is just going to fall flat because of it if we go back. Or every AC game from now on is going to have to somehow shoehorn this in. Tyranny King Washington didn't do that too much because it's a relatively short time when we get to use that power. But after like 80 hours of playing with being able to rappel up buildings, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back to the other games as easy.
I think some of it will change because, especially if we go back in time, we're not going to have buildings as tall as London or streets as wide as London. So even to some extent, you could argue that doing a London game, they kind of have to have the carriages at least because the streets are so big. Honestly, like I was surprised you didn't get bigger boulevards in Paris because Paris is famed for its wide boulevards.
They massively changed the combat again in Syndicate, which is very interesting. They've made it, as we mentioned, more responsive, faster. It's supposed to be just as difficult as Unity is, and by this they've added more variation. The guards don't take turns to attack you as much.
Although they say that every time.
Well, they said it with Unity.
They improved it over. They say it every time, but most of the time that's a true assertion. Especially, I mean, you could argue the frequency is pretty low, but in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood compared to Assassin's Creed 2, like you do a counter animation in Assassin's Creed 2, and you're fine for the duration of the animation. Whereas in Brotherhood, they will attack. You can be interrupted.
True. Fair. Yeah, you're right.
There are several different weapons now available, including the knuckle dusters.
And they're all very close range, which is nice.
Yes, they're all close range. Well, some people might think it's nice.
I'm also interested in how much variety we have in that.
We have a six... Can you stop?
Go ahead.
We have a 6-shooter, which allows us to do either brutal finishes or long-range shots. And we also have his hidden blade. We have the kukri, as we mentioned, which is the Nepalese curved blade. And what we haven't seen in gameplay yet is the sword, cane, scythe thing. That looks very interesting.
They're saving that for E3.
Yeah, I guess. I'm really glad that they went with the sword cane at least, because that's what Edward had when he lived in England.
Quick thing, since we're talking about Batman, Stunning was confirmed in I think it was the Game Informer article again, which means that there are a lot of influences from Batman Arkham, which is just more of a good thing.
Didn't we have the stunning in Unity?
We
We had the stun break. Hold X. Hit him.
Yeah, but that was But also the fight latency was cut in half. I don't really know what that means.
I think that
it plays
means-
into changing between targets faster and making crowd control more of a priority, which is neat.
I think what that means to some extent is like, whereas in Unity, you press the button and then he goes through the whole like realistic animation, like, you know, he winds up, he follows through. Whereas in like a lot of games, you get like impact as soon as you hit the button, or like within like a split second. So it's not really noticeable, but it still feels somewhat realistic. Whereas like in Unity, a lot of things felt laggy because you'd hit the button and he'd take a while to do it, or it wouldn't interact with another animation. Like, especially smoke bombs. Like if you're in the middle of another animation and you try to throw a smoke bomb, it will not happen for like another extra second or so. So I think that's probably what they mean, is they're just like doing away with a lot of that stuff that, while it may look realistic, is kind of very annoying when you're trying to like do things quickly.
One thing that, before we move on to the last topic, considering a Syndicate, the day-night cycle has returned, which I'm very excited for. The ability to whistle has come back.
Yes.
We have the throw knives, which we failed to mention. We're doing really great here. Single player only, which is very, very interesting. I assume that's probably to minimize the glitchiness. Because
can I talk about that real quick?
yeah, sure, go ahead.
I was initially very surprised at the lack of multiplayer, because I thought, since they rewrote all of the code in the Anvil engine to make it work for Unity, that they would have just scrapped it. Which means one of two things, which is A, that they just from the very beginning didn't want to do multiplayer in this game, or the code was so absolutely wrecked that they just thought it was easier to completely scrap it and start from scratch. Because I would have thought that with two protagonists, integrated story co-op would have been the next step. And that's what I was really hoping for from the beginning of the announcement of Syndicate, was integrated story co-op. So, yeah.
I have to agree with you there. I was really disappointed that we're not going to get co-op back next year, because I mean, I'm not usually a fan of multiplayer games, but there was just something really fun about doing the heist with a group of buddies and just having a blast. I spent more time on on Unity's multiplayer than like any other multiplayer focused game that I've played before. And yeah, exactly what you said about, you know, having the two characters and do story-based co-op would have been so cool. I'm really disappointed about it.
One new thing is that the minimap is again circular.
Yes!
So it
That makes me
seems
so happy.
that Ubisoft is determined as ever to make the HUDs between the games as inconsistent as possible.
Yes.
I want the circles. There's nothing more frustrating than seeing a marker on the square and then turning around to see it, and turning around made it go away even though it's the same distance from you.
Yep. Yeah.
Screw that. And GTA 5 gets the same shit for that.
Would you two like to discuss gangs?
Yes, I am really excited for the gangs. And we talked about this earlier with how they'll play into being around London. You can kind of recruit them and pick them up. Since we have gangs, we have Gang Wars, which is confirmed. And we got a little bit of a demo. It was cut short, which made me think that it was oddly spliced together with the editing of the trailer. But I was sort of mediumly impressed by, that's not a real word, but how the Gang Wars played out. One thing I would like to see is we're gangs, we're syndicates. This is a city with banks. Are we going to have heists? I'm kind of feeling like we're going to have heists.
That's interesting. That's an interesting thought.
Unity had heists.
Yeah, but that Unity also had co-op.
But we don't need co-op to steal money from a bank.
Italy had banks.
No, but like
Yeah.
they would have to do
We didn't steal from banks.
something. They'd have to redo something to figure out how to do it in single player.
I
Because
think
I don't think the
probably-
format that's just like you by yourself go in and steal money is going.
But you
to
have your
work.
gang. That's the thing.
But then, they have
The
to,
AI
but then they have to write for the gang. They have to figure out how to make the gang work in, and that will take more time. And
Speaking from an narrative position, I'm not sure that fighting and sticking up for the common man stealing his money is a good way to do that.
It's a good point, because as
It's
capitalism
the bank's
grows,
money at that point. It's on them to.
Was it work?
To get
Did it work
back-
like that in Victorian London though? Banks
Good
were banks
question.
federally
Fuck if I know.
federally insured as they are in the
Oh
US.
God, no, that wasn't until like the 1930s.
Damn.
So was your money just gone?
I
Yep.
tried.
Yeah,
I
your
tried
money
to
was gone.
save it. I'm sorry.
yeah, no. And I mean, especially because we are in the Industrial Revolution, this capitalist revolution, people get more involved in finances again. There's several places where they get slightly more involved in finances, like the American Revolution, they got more involved in finances, and it always kind of ends up back to like, we don't buy stuff anymore, even though we have the freedom to do so.
Now, on the flip side of gangs, we have police, which were also confirmed.
But
And
we
I
haven't
think
seen.
we haven't seen them, but apparently, if you get into a carriage crash, which is just a wonderful thought to think about, police will actually show up to the scene, so you can actually cause a distraction based on that, which is really neat because you can open up a lot of interesting gameplay opportunities with that.
I hope they're not like the ones in Unity, because they were just dicks patrolling the streets, and that was
And here,
pretty.
Go ahead.
It was pretty
What
much
they've
the exact.
said-
It was the exact same thing as we've seen in every game. It was just like random guards. It didn't matter whose side they were
What
on.
they've said to some extent is that at least the police will make sense given different areas.
Yeah.
So, like in the upper class areas, there will be police, but in the slums, there aren't really going to be police because there's crime all over the place.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
which also to me shows that there will be some areas in the game where you just won't encounter enemies because at some point you're going to take them over with your gang, and there won't be anybody to attack you there.
Last thing about the carriages is Edward kills about half of the population of
Jacob.
London in that chase. Yeah, Jacob, right. Jacob kills about half of the population of London in that chase sequence.
There's no confirmation.
They
that
just
he died.
nicely, subtly drifted
I would
out to the
rather-
side and knocked down. Just
This
like
is really like a watch the thing, like determine for yourself whether they died or not thing. And this argument is silly.
I think it depends
and-
whether you're speaking realistically or you're speaking in game, because in game is just like in the other games with the horses and they get knocked out of the way. But story, you would have been both killed by the horses in the other game and the carriage in this game.
Yeah.
Okay, so adding to that, according to the articles, driving like a maniac will get the police on your tail. And in the demo, there was a white line which shot across the street, which is sort of like a marker, but also it served to tell you, hey, stay on the right side of the road. So if you go driving like an American on the right side, the cops will actually show up and tell you to drive the right way, which I think is really cool.
Yes.
The right side in this case being the same as the incorrect side.
Yes.
Well, I think I have some papers for this week. A bit of a long one, which was planned. Thanks for joining us for this, Lawson.
It's been a pleasure as always, Aftermath.
As always, you can find Lawson's music in the description. He makes all the music for this podcast, and it's a pleasure having his music on. As usual, you can reach us on the Assassin's Creed subreddit, which is assassinscreed.reddit.com or reddit.com/r/Assassin's Creed, as well as on Twitter, and through our email, animuspodcast@gmail.com. Next week, we're joined by the curator of the AC fan page, Those Who Came Before, Cole96. If you'd like to be a guest or would like to ask us a question to answer on the show, then you can contact us in any of the ways listed earlier or in any of the ways listed in the description. See you next week.